44-year-old Jessica Asato, the Labour Member of Parliament for Lowestoft, elected almost exactly a year ago. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're going to talk today about the changes that you are trying to make. You're taking them to Parliament next week, and it's about the nature of online pornography. Tell me what you're going to do next week, how you're going to try and propose to change the law. What do you want to stop?
Well, we know that online pornography has become a vector for violence against women and girls. This isn't the sort of pornography that people might have been used to in the 1980s. We're talking about extreme violent acts, degrading acts against women in pornography. And in particular, the thing that I'm trying to change is that choking in pornography is legal online, but it is illegal offline. So if you were to go to a sex shop and buy a pornography DVD, a bit old-fashioned, you wouldn't be able to watch very violent acts of choking of women. And I'm trying to make sure that the same applies online so that we can really stop this huge avalanche of violence towards women and girls.
And I've looked at the proposals that you're seeking to make progress on next week. Also, you're talking about very big fines, custodial sentences. Just explain those. If anybody is in breach, if they do show, any of these companies do show the choking or suffocating of a woman, what would happen to them? If they breach the law, if you got the law changed and then they breached it?
So, obviously, I'm hoping that the government will look at my change that I'm putting forward next week in Parliament positively. If they were to take that forward and make it the law, then what would happen is that porn companies would be in breach of the law if they shared videos of choking. That would give OFCOM, they are the regulator through the Online Safety Act, the powers to have really big fines or in some cases start criminal proceedings. So I'm just asking for this particular content category, choking in particular, to be part of the Online Safety Act and for OFCOM to act if porn companies don't then take this stuff off their sites.
Why is this such a priority campaign for you?
Well, I guess it started a long time ago when I was a trustee of a charity called Brooke, as a young person's sexual health charity, and this would have been over 20 years ago, when pornography online wasn't quite as virulent as it is now. But I remember one of our helpline advisors talking us through some of the cases that had called through. And a young girl had rung up and said that her boyfriend said that she was a freak because she didn't have any hair down there. And I remember thinking at the time, gosh, how do you end up thinking that that's like unnatural rather than natural?
Yeah.
And it was due to the fact that so many young people were looking at pornography as a way of understanding sex and relationships. That was 20 years ago, and it's got a lot worse now. And when I worked for children's charity Bernardo's, which was my job before I got into Parliament, we had a number of what were called harmful sexual behaviour services. And they were seeing younger and younger kids, like 7, 8, 9-year-olds, coming into their services addicted to watching pornography. There was one child who, when she was asked her favourite thing, she said it was prawn, and the teacher worked out it meant porn. And so that's sort of, more recently how I started to understand this just absolute epidemic, which is impacting deeply on our children. Now, I'm really glad that the Online Safety Act that was introduced by the previous government is introducing age verification. So that means that if you are under 18, from July, fingers crossed if it all works, children won't be able to see this very, very harmful content. But I think it needs to go further, because the actual content that adults are seeing, and frankly, sometimes children will maybe still be able to share and see, it is so insidious, and we know that it has led to a huge increase in, for example, choking being used in everyday relationships. So about 40% of men say that they have choked a woman during sex, and similar numbers of women say that they have as well. But also this is leading to things like spitting, slapping, all things that actually many women say they don't want, they don't consent to, so technically that's criminal. And choking is never, ever safe. There's no safe way to do this. And there's some medical evidence now that women who are being choked time and time again during sex are suffering brain damage. We know from sexual assault referral centres that many of the victims who come in will have been choked without their consent. In some cases, that's leading them to go to A&E. It's leading them to have dizzy spells and to lose memory and so forth. This is actually a very, very harmful act. And so from my perspective, it's about time that we saw this as both an issue to do with criminal justice. It's about protecting women against violence. And of course, we've got a target as a government to halve violence against women and girls. But it's also a public health issue. And we know that actually many men say that they're addicted to porn and they don't want to be, because it operates on your brain. It's something that you sort of fall into a
some
sort
people
of
might just think, can you just stop watching it then? If you know it's a problem, can you just don't go there? Is that too simplistic?
Well, I mean, actually, it is. I mean, we wouldn't say the same if you were addicted to alcohol or drugs or smoking, or, you know, you'd create systems, wouldn't you, of smoking cessation and AA and so forth. With pornography, we know that actually the centres that work with those who are addicted are just getting more and more and more people self-referring. And the reason why it's really hard to give up is because actually it's just everywhere. It's completely normalised. During COVID, I think Pornhub said that there was 50% of men every week were watching porn regularly. Now, I think that has dropped, but it's a regular around 40% of men every single week will watch pornography.
But is watching... I'm struggling to find the right word. Sort of mainstream, not non-violent, consensual pornography. Do you have a problem with that?
I don't have any problem with that at all, and I'm certainly not here to be a moralist. What I'm really concerned about is the damaging impact it has in the real lives of women and girls in relationships. But I'm also very worried about children too. So we know that child sexual abuse material has absolutely spiralled out of control on the internet. And what we're finding is that many men who go on to develop an interest in children, so illegal child sexual abuse material online or obviously contact offline, often start by watching online pornography and developing an interest in the teen strand, which is ubiquitous. It's the number one searched for term on pornography channels. And we are talking about very, very young looking adult actors. We don't know whether they're over 18. The porn companies say they are, but there's no way of proving it.
What would you do about that?
Well, that's one of the other amendments that I have down that I hope the government might accept next week, which is that porn companies have to prove that every single person who is engaged in the pornographic acts is over 18, so that we absolutely stop what is child pornography appearing on these channels. And I think one of the things that we know is that sometimes this teen material where they dress up as children, pigtails, homework, they call them daddy, look, I just think that's disgusting. I think most of your viewers will go, well, that's just pretending to be paedophilic material. Like, how is that legal? It's not legal offline. We shouldn't allow it to be legal online. So that's another thing that I'm trying to tackle, because we need to stop this gateway. Pornography is acting like a gateway for often men who've got no sexual interest in children, but who develop it over watching so much of this material that they get desensitised to it, and then they want to find something harder. A lot of the perpetrators of child sexual abuse who've been interviewed have said that their journey started with legal online pornography, and they just clicked on a pop-up that was offering them something that was darker and illegal.
Do you have any engagement with the porn companies on this? Have you tried to sort of have conversations and say, look, I'm going to try and change the law if you don't act? Or... I
have previously met with ALO, who are the parent company of Pornhub. But actually, when I tried to search for people to meet in the porn companies, they're all offshored, a lot of them in Cyprus, and it's impossible to find anyone to speak to. So I have met with one of the big ones, but apart from that, they're shady. They make billions and billions of dollars a year. Some people say they make more than the whole of Hollywood combined, but it's very, very hard to find out who's in charge of them.
So big week for you next week. Good luck in trying to change the law on this. There's another big vote in Parliament next week, and you're passionate about this too. This isn't one you chose to campaign on, but this is an issue that you've had to decide on, and that is assisted dying, which will be voted on Friday. And you are passionately against it. You will be passionately going through that no division in Parliament next Friday. Why are you so against the principle of assisted dying?
Well, it's really interesting because I didn't think that I would end up being such a campaigner against this law. When I first got elected last year, if somebody had asked me, I would have said probably on balance I'm in favour. And certainly if I could create a bill for myself, I'd like to take the option. But, when you become an MP, you know that these things are coming up, and I knew there'd probably be an assisted dying vote at some point. And I started sort of thinking about, I guess, all of the people that I've worked with and the organisations that I've worked with before. So I used to work for the domestic abuse sector for many, many years before moving into the children's sector. And the more that I thought through the cases that I knew about, mercy killings, where men had killed their wives and said, she was unwell, she was sick, and I just wanted her to, not suffer at the end of her life. And then after further investigation, it was found that actually, no, that was a domestic homicide. Unfortunately, there are people who do want to harm each other, people who say they love each other, but who at the end of the day are coercively controlling their partners and who tell them throughout their lives that they'd be better off dead. And so for me, I started to think about the role of coercion, both, outward coercion, but also what happens if you are told that you have a terminal illness and you've spent 40 years in your relationship being told that you're nothing. Well, actually, a lot of women might go, okay, this is my chance to finally leave, my chance to finally go. And you might say, well, they're terminally ill anyway, so is that such a crime? But we know that 40% of doctors do not get the 6 months, or less to live right. So in my mind, I've been thinking, well, hold on a minute. If you're in that coercive controlling situation, you get a terminal diagnosis, but it's wrong. But you choose an assisted death because of your life, because you have this coercion all around you and you just want to escape. That's a wrong death. And for me, I can't live with the idea that we'd be allowing the state to create a mechanism that would end up with people wrongly taking their lives. And that's the fundamental reason why I'm voting against.
You've spoken very passionately, very much from the heart on that. I can tell how strongly you feel about it. I'm not sure you have the numbers to defeat it. I feel, but please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not in Parliament anymore, and like you, that the wind is blowing in favour of legalising assisted dying.
Well, if the conversations I'm having with colleagues are anything to go by, I don't think that's the case. We've seen a number of MPs switch their votes in recent weeks, including Steve Darling, who is obviously a disabled MP for the Liberal Democrats. And I think colleagues are finally sort of really starting to focus on what this actually means. And in the end, we're not voting on the principle of assisted dying. We're voting for a bill. We have a bill in front of us that has numerous flaws, including, for example, enabling somebody who might be anorexic, and there is now this term of terminal anorexia. Anorexia, though, is reversible. But under this bill, if it gets to a stage where doctors determine that it's terminal, you would be able to opt for an assisted death. Now, we know the vast majority of people who suffer from anorexia are actually young women. And so we're very worried that given what's happened in Oregon and other places that have assisted dying, that we are going to see a huge increase in young women who have anorexia starving themselves so they can take advantage of an assisted death. Now, I just don't think that is right. The bill sponsor has not ruled that out of the bill. And similarly, we know that you can raise this with children. So you could be an anorexic 16-year-old. You could ask about this, be told about it, starve yourself, and on your 18th birthday, get an assisted death, and your parents wouldn't even have to know.
I know the proponents of next week's bill would take issue with many of the things that you have said. You've argued passionately. There will no doubt be a very passionate argument about this on Friday. And I think we'll all be glued. It's just so seismic.
It is. Yeah.
But Jessica Asato, thank you for speaking about both your proactive campaign and the position you found yourself in by nature of this vote on assisted dying. Jessica Asato, MP for Lowestoft, thank you.
Thank you ever so much.